American fighter just surfaced, and it's already changing the balance of air power. For decades, the Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor and the Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II defined an unmatched edge in stealth and technology. Then China introduced the Chengdu J-20 and later the Shenyang J-thirty-five, raising serious questions about that advantage. Now, a new aircraft has rolled out of Palmdale, the Boeing F-47. What makes it different? Join us as we reveal how America's sixth generation just shattered every record. The United States Air Force has spent the last 2 decades operating under a single, unassailable assumption. Its fifth-generation fighters, the F-22 Raptor and the F-35 Lightning, would maintain air dominance against any adversary for the foreseeable future. But the uncomfortable truth is that the F-22 was designed in the 1980s and entered service in 2005. Its production run was cut short at 187 aircraft, far fewer than the 750 originally planned. The F-35, while advanced, was conceived in a world where peer competitors didn't exist. It was built to do everything, and in doing everything, it made trade-offs that left it vulnerable to the kind of sophisticated integrated air defenses that China has spent 2 decades building. China now fields the J-20, a stealth fighter that, while not an F-22 killer, is capable enough to contest airspace that was once uncontestable. The J-35, China's answer to the F-35, is entering mass production. And the PLAAF has invested heavily in long-range air-to-air missiles, over-the-horizon radar, and a network of sensors designed specifically to detect, track, and engage America's existing stealth fleet. For the first time since the fall of the Soviet Union, the United States faces a future where air superiority is not guaranteed. They couldn't let that happen. The Air Force began searching for the next-generation fighter in earnest under a program called Next Generation Air Dominance, or NGAD, with a single overriding requirement: create an aircraft that can penetrate the most sophisticated integrated air defense system on the planet, win the air-to-air fight against any adversary, and do so while operating in an environment where every sensor is watching and every missile is waiting. The Air Force didn't try to improve the 5th generation. They leapfrogged it entirely with a platform so fundamentally different that it requires a new name for what it does. NGAD is not a fighter in the traditional sense. It is a system of systems, a manned penetrating platform designed to operate as the quarterback of a team of autonomous drones, electronic warfare assets, and sensor nodes. This concept was first demonstrated in classified flight tests beginning in the early 2020s. While the public was focused on the F-35's software updates and sustainment challenges, the Air Force was quietly flying a full-scale flight demonstrator of the NGAD platform. Multiple prototypes were built, flown, and evaluated in operational scenarios that simulated the exact threats the aircraft would face in a Pacific conflict. The existence of these demonstrators was confirmed by the Secretary of the Air Force in 2020. By then, the prototypes had already logged dozens of flight hours, proving that the underlying technologies, adaptive cycle engines, advanced thermal management, and autonomous teaming were ready for prime time. In March 2025, the Air Force did something unprecedented. They announced that the NGAD program had selected its winner and that the aircraft would be designated the F-47, a number reserved for a fighter that represents a generational leap forward. The F-47 is powered by a new generation of adaptive cycle engines, developed under the Adaptive Engine Transition Program, that can reconfigure themselves in flight. At low speeds, they operate like a high-bypass turbofan, sipping fuel and extending range. At supersonic speeds, they reconfigure into a low-bypass configuration optimized for thrust. The result is a fighter with the range of a strategic bomber and the sprint speed of a dedicated interceptor. Its combat radius is classified, but analysts estimate it exceeds 1,000 nautical miles without refueling, double that of the F-35. Its top speed is also classified, but the aircraft has been confirmed to cruise at supersonic speeds without afterburners, a capability known as supercruise that only the F-22 has ever achieved in operational service. The F-47 carries no internal gun. Instead, its weapons bays are optimized for long-range air-to-air missiles, the AIM-260 Joint Advanced Tactical Missile, designed specifically to outrange anything China or Russia can field. It carries a directed energy weapon, a laser, capable of intercepting incoming missiles at the speed of light, and it operates in collaborative teams with up to 6 collaborative combat aircraft, or CCAs, autonomous drones that fly ahead of the manned fighter, providing additional sensors, carrying extra weapons, and absorbing the risk that would otherwise be directed at the pilot. The aircraft's stealth is not just radar stealth, it is multispectral stealth. The F-47 is designed to defeat not just X-band radar, but low-frequency search radar, infrared sensors, and even electronic warfare systems. Its thermal management system is so advanced that it can dissipate the heat from its own engines and directed energy weapon without creating the infrared signature that modern sensors rely on to track stealth aircraft. In plain English, the F-47 is designed to be invisible to every sensor that exists today, and it has the computing power to adapt to sensors that don't exist yet. The tactical concept built around the F-47 is called collaborative combat, and its central requirement captures what the Air Force is actually trying to accomplish: manned-unmanned teaming at scale. Consider what this means for the first operational unit to receive the F-47. In a conflict scenario, a single F-47 would launch from a forward base, accompanied by 6 autonomous drones. The drones fly ahead, emitting radar signals, jamming enemy sensors, and presenting themselves as targets. When an enemy air defense system activates to engage the drones, the F-47 identifies the source of the emission and engages it with a weapon that outranges anything the enemy can fire back. The drones are not remotely piloted in the traditional sense. They are given mission parameters: search this area, jam that frequency, engage that target, and execute them autonomously, adapting to the tactical situation in real time. If a drone is destroyed, the F-47 continues the mission without missing a beat. If the drone completes its mission, it returns to base autonomously, refuels, rearms, and launches again. The F-47 is also designed for the strike mission. Its weapons bays are large enough to carry the AGM-183AR-RW, an air-launched hypersonic missile capable of striking targets at Mach 5 from over 1,000 miles away. It can carry the next generation of air-to-ground munitions, including small-diameter bombs and cruise missiles. And because it operates with drones, it can suppress enemy air defenses without ever putting the manned platform inside the threat envelope. The Air Force's total requirement for the F-47 remains classified, but the program of record calls for a fleet of approximately 200 aircraft, with production scheduled to begin before 2030. The cost per aircraft is estimated at between $250 and $300 million. Expensive, but comparable to the F-22 when adjusted for inflation, and less than the cost of the B-21 bomber program. But cost is not the metric that matters here. What matters is capability. The F-47 is designed to do something no fighter has ever done: operate inside the anti-access area denial bubble that China has spent 2 decades constructing. The combination of extreme range, advanced stealth, autonomous teaming, and directed energy weapons creates a platform that can go where no existing aircraft can go, strike what no existing aircraft can strike, and survive in an environment where even the F-22 would be at risk. All of this matters because the People's Liberation Army Air Force has spent the last 20 years studying American air power. They know the flight profiles of the F-22. They know the sensor limitations of the F-35. They know the range, the speed, the altitude bands, and the approach corridors. They have built an integrated air defense system specifically designed to counter the platforms they expected to face. The F-47 breaks every one of those patterns. Its range means it can launch from bases outside China's missile envelope. Its speed means it can arrive over the target before the enemy can reposition its defenses. Its drone team means it can fight without ever revealing its own position. And its directed energy weapon means it can defeat the one thing that has always threatened stealth aircraft: the surface-to-air missile that gets lucky. The F-47 does not operate alone. It is the centerpiece of a broader transformation in American air power that also includes the B-21 Raider bomber, the next generation of air-launched hypersonic weapons, and a space-based sensor architecture that can track every moving target on the planet. A future air campaign would see F-47s penetrating the outer layers of an adversary's defenses, clearing the way for B-21s to deliver massed conventional strikes, while autonomous drones handle the suppression of remaining air defense nodes. None of this means the F-47 is without risk. The aircraft is the most complex and expensive fighter ever developed. Its software is untested in combat. Its autonomous drone teaming concept has never been validated under the pressure of live fire. And the industrial base required to produce it at scale, the advanced composites, the adaptive cycle engines, the directed energy weapons, is only now being brought online. But unlike the F-35, which was designed to satisfy the requirements of 3 different military services with competing priorities, the F-47 was designed for one mission: win a great power conflict against China. That clarity of purpose changes everything. The first operational F-47 squadrons are scheduled to be established by 2030, with the aircraft achieving initial operational capability by the end of that decade. The critical design review was completed in 2024, and production of the first engineering and manufacturing development units is already underway. The supply chain, drawn from across 48 states, is being ramped up to meet the production schedule. For 2 decades, America's adversaries have studied the playbook. They have reverse engineered the capabilities, built weapons designed specifically to defeat the systems that currently fill the hangars. The F-47 is the answer they didn't see coming, because it doesn't just beat their best, it makes their best irrelevant. Leaked plans expose America's next move. Boeing's F-47 NGAD fighter could be America's answer to fighting Mexican cartels. While news headlines focus on immigration issues, a different kind of threat has been growing in the background. Sources report that the United States is secretly preparing a mission that changes how it fights against Mexico's most powerful cartels. What new weapon is the Pentagon hiding behind classified walls? And how far is America willing to go to confront its enemies? Join us as we explore the features of Boeing's F-47 that might soon be used against Mexican cartels. Sources close to defense planning circles report that the United States is secretly preparing for a major change in how it deals with cartel networks. Internal discussions point to a response that is far beyond traditional law enforcement. President Donald Trump has reportedly shown a strong interest in the growing threat these groups pose to American cities and border stability. Intelligence briefings describe cartels as highly organized, transnational operations moving narcotics, weapons, and money with near-military precision. These groups now operate with billions of dollars in assets, recruit former military personnel, and utilize encrypted communications to manage territories larger than some sovereign nations. Their influence has expanded to the point where they are no longer seen as criminal gangs, but as armed networks capable of challenging government control. Behind closed doors, officials are weighing options that include advanced surveillance, AI-driven monitoring, and coordinated air operations, tools typically reserved for military campaigns. The reason the United States is changing its approach while keeping things quiet makes sense when considering what it's up against. Mexican cartels have gone from basic criminal groups into well-organized forces with serious money behind them. These organizations use encrypted communication systems that are actually better than what many local police departments have. But what really stands out is their aircraft operations. Cartels now fly modified planes that would catch the eye of any aviation fan. They are allegedly using Cessna Caravans with extra fuel tanks for longer flights and crop dusters rebuilt to carry heavy loads. These are not sloppy modifications either. Cartel mechanics have added radar detectors, heat-reducing systems on the exhausts, and stronger materials to handle heavier takeoffs than the planes were designed for. They fly drones with thermal cameras for scouting routes, the same kind used in search and rescue work. They have even built makeshift anti-aircraft guns by mounting heavy machine guns on rotating platforms with basic targeting sights. These setups are rough, but they work against helicopters and smaller aircraft flying low. This kind of technical skill in an illegal operation is exactly why advanced jets like the F-47 are being looked at for situations outside traditional warfare. Due to this, Mexico's northern border has transformed at night. Surveillance drones monitor smuggling paths, helicopters patrol the sky, and convoys travel across the desert. The Next Generation Air Dominance Program, known as NGAD, remains one of the most classified projects in American military aviation. Boeing's F-47 is their entry into this secretive competition, and from what's leaked out, it's something special. The aircraft combines stealth technology with artificial intelligence in ways current fighters simply can't match. While a standard fighter jet needs a pilot to process information and make decisions, the F-47's can analyze thousands of data points and respond in the time it takes a human to blink. It was initially designed to address potential conflicts with major military powers, such as China or Russia, but Pentagon discussions now suggest testing it closer to home. The F-47 systems would be able to pull live feeds from satellites orbiting overhead, listen in on radio chatter across multiple frequencies, and track moving targets on the ground without ever appearing on radar. In practical terms, this means the jet could monitor cartel aircraft taking off from hidden desert airstrips, follow drug convoys winding through mountain roads, and coordinate responses before smugglers even know they've been spotted. For the Pentagon, this opens up mission profiles nobody considered when designing sixth-generation fighters. For Boeing, it proves their platform isn't locked into one role. The F-47 should operate in scenarios ranging from peer conflict over the Pacific to counter-narcotics operations just miles from Texas. The jet is a new stealth fighter built for next-level air combat. Its surface is layered with radar-absorbing material that acts like a sponge, but instead of soaking up water, it takes in radar waves. When radar systems scan the sky, this coating stops the waves from bouncing back, making the jet hard to detect. Any leftover signals get scattered in different directions, which lowers the chance of being picked up. It works somewhat like how some buildings use rough surfaces to break up sound, but in this case, it breaks up radar signals. Older jets show up clearly on radar, but the F-47 would not show at all. The engine setup on the F-47 is unlike anything flying right now. It would run on an adaptive cycle system, like a smart car transmission, which would change how air flows through the turbines depending on the mission. For long trips, it cuts down on fuel use and can fly over 1,000 nautical miles without stopping to refuel. That's about the same distance as flying from New York to Miami. In combat, the engine would be able to switch modes to deliver exceptional speed and climb performance that surpasses today's fighters. It would also be much quieter than regular military jets, making it hard for people on the ground to hear. With its stealth surface, flexible engine, long reach, and low noise, this jet can move through enemy zones with barely any chance of being spotted. Most of what's known about the next-generation air dominance fighter is still under wraps. Only a few details have been confirmed. The jet is being developed inside Boeing's most secure labs, where strict rules are in place. Phones and personal gear aren't allowed, and only those with top-level clearance can get in. Some reports mention cockpit screens that shift based on what's happening, with controls built for fast reactions. Test flights have caught the attention of aviation experts, and pilots who've flown early versions say the jet reacts instantly to input. Boeing sees this as a major step forward in fighter design. The tight security around the project has led to ongoing speculation about where and how the F-47 will be used, making it one of the most closely watched aircraft programs in modern defense. The Next Generation Air Dominance Program isn't just about one jet. The F-47 is designed to work alongside semi-autonomous drones known as loyal wingmen, forming a fast-moving network in the air. These drones would handle tasks like scouting, jamming enemy signals, or carrying out strikes on their own, all while sending updates back to the main fighter. Reports suggest the jet's AI has gone through training on thousands of combat scenarios, similar to how chess computers learn from countless matches. According to sources, it can spot threats and respond in seconds, processing information much faster than any pilot could. What stands out in the leaked details is the range this setup covers. The technology could potentially watch over large areas without needing troops on the ground. In cartel-controlled regions, missions might run with low chances of detection. A drone could fly overhead quietly while the F-47 directs operations from a distance, handling all the data through its network. This changes what border security looks like. Instead of physical barriers and patrol routes, it becomes a digital surveillance grid stretching across hundreds of miles. Sensors feed information to the aircraft, the AI analyzes patterns, and responses happen before anyone on the ground realizes they've been tracked. It's a completely different approach to securing territory, one that relies on technology and data rather than personnel and infrastructure. High-end military tech comes with challenges. Tools like precision bombs and drones were meant to lower casualty numbers, but civilian deaths still happened. The F-47 would boost speed in operations, but would also raise the stakes. There are ongoing concerns about how much control AI systems should have. Mistakes could occur if the system misreads a situation, like mistaking a civilian car for a cartel vehicle. When machines move faster than human checks, it is harder to pin down responsibility. Boeing says humans will still oversee the process, though staff admit not every AI action can be tracked in real time. Some officials see this as progress. Others worry it could lead to unexpected issues. New military technology brings its own set of issues. Tools like drones and precision strikes were meant to lower casualties, but civilian deaths still happened. The F-47 adds speed to operations, but also raises the chance of mistakes. Algorithms might get it wrong, confusing a regular vehicle with a cartel convoy. When systems operate faster than human checks, it is often harder to determine who's responsible. Boeing mentioned, however, that humans will still oversee the process, and although insiders admit not every action can be tracked in real time, most of the officials call it progress. In parts of northern Mexico, cartels don't hide anymore. They move openly in organized convoys with tight formations, protected by former soldiers carrying military-grade weapons. Cities like Culiacan, Reynosa, and Nuevo Laredo have turned into conflict zones where these groups arrive wearing tactical body armor, flying surveillance drones overhead, and jamming police radios before attacks even start. The way they operate shows serious planning. They buy armored trucks through shell companies that look legitimate on paper. They run established smuggling networks moving both cash and weapons across borders. They even hire hackers to monitor law enforcement communications and movements. This has moved past typical criminal activity into something that is more organized and sophisticated. Mexican security forces find themselves in a tough spot. They are often facing opponents with better equipment and sometimes access to better intelligence than they have. It is not uncommon for cartel groups to know about police operations before they happen, or to outgun government forces in confrontations. This is why the potential deployment of the F-47 matters so much. It is a fundamental change in approach. Instead of treating the war as a law enforcement problem with police and federal agents, it would mean bringing in next-generation military aircraft designed for combat operations. The F-47 would not just be supporting police work, it would be providing the kind of air superiority normally reserved for actual war zones. That is a significant shift in how the United States views the cartel threat and what tools it is willing to use against it. Cartel planes have been moving drugs north and money south for a long time. Groups like Sinaloa and Jalisco run fleets of small jets and modified aircraft built to dodge radar. Satellite scans have picked up hidden runways in remote deserts and mountains, creating smuggling routes that regular systems miss. The United States defense experts mention that these setups have gotten so advanced that ground teams struggle to keep up. The F-47, with its high-end sensors and tracking tools, could change that. Instead of waiting for planes to launch, it can spot them early by picking up heat, tracking signals, and using data to guess flight paths. It is a strategy similar to what was used against ISIS drones, but now aimed at areas near the US border. Defense insiders are talking about something called Operation Silent Falcon. From what has been leaked, this is not a typical military operation. According to insiders, the plan is to pair Boeing's F-47 with a fleet of stealth drones in a way that has never been tried before. Here is what makes it fascinating from an aviation perspective. The missions would operate entirely outside Mexican airspace. The F-47 would fly patrol patterns along the United States side of the border, using its extended range and AI coordination to direct unmanned aircraft across the line. This would be more like a carrier air wing, except the carrier is a single sixth-generation fighter managing multiple strike and reconnaissance platforms simultaneously. The drones would handle the actual incursions, while the F-47 would stay in friendly airspace, processing data and calling shots in real time. Targets would include moving drug convoys, jungle production facilities, and clandestine airstrips carved into remote terrain. These are not easy targets to hit. Many of them sit in areas with zero road access, surrounded by dense vegetation or mountain ranges. Traditional approaches would require helicopters, ground teams, or close air support aircraft that cartels could hear coming from miles away. The stealth drone approach changes that equation completely. Low observable platforms would be able to arrive undetected, deliver a heavy strike, and disappear before anyone realizes what happened. What really catches attention in the aviation community is the operational concept. There would be no ground troops or press releases, and they would make sure there is no wreckage for investigators to trace back. The entire operation is designed for total deniability. Supporters argue this could cripple cartel logistics networks that have operated untouched for decades. Critics say once the United States military starts running covert strikes with advanced military hardware, the difference between warfare and law enforcement disappears entirely. Either way, the F-47 would be bringing something new to the fight, and the cartels are not prepared for it. Classified operations rarely stay classified forever. Once word gets out about something like Operation Silent Falcon, the political shockwaves would hit fast. For aviation enthusiasts, the interesting part is not just the technology. It is what happens when advanced military hardware enters a complex geopolitical landscape. Mexico would be in an impossible position. The government already struggles with cartel infiltration at multiple levels. It would be hard for them to explain to their citizens why American sixth-generation fighters are directing strike operations near their airspace. Even if missions stay on the United States side of the border technically, the optics are terrible. Politicians in Mexico City would face intense pressure from those who see this as a sovereignty violation, even if they secretly welcome anything that weakens the cartels. Human rights organizations would jump on this immediately. They would argue that using aircraft designed to fight peer adversaries against criminal organizations is massive overkill. When a weapon system built for Russian or Chinese air defenses gets pointed at drug smugglers, questions about proportional response become unavoidable. Regional leaders across Latin America would likely condemn it as overreach, drawing comparisons to past U.S. interventions that left bitter memories. But here is the difference that makes this complicated. Public opinion might not follow the official statements. People living in cartel-dominated regions deal with violence, extortion, and fear daily. If advanced military technology actually disrupts cartel operations and brings some relief, there would be support for the actions of the United States military, even if their governments publicly object. That creates a weird dynamic. For aviation enthusiasts, this raises a bigger question about modern air power. The F-47 is being designed for contested airspace against advanced militaries. Its stealth profile, sensor fusion, and loyal wingman integration are not meant for scenarios where survival depends on technological edge. Using that same platform for counter-narcotics work is like bringing a Formula One car to a grocery run. Massive capability applied to a completely different problem. Boeing and Pentagon planners are betting that overwhelming technological advantage can succeed where traditional approaches failed. Whether that makes the F-47 a breakthrough in asymmetric warfare or a symbol of mission creep depends entirely on results. And the results of this kind of operation are measured not just in targets destroyed, but in political consequences that ripple for years. Using the Boeing's F-47 against cartels would flip the entire concept of American air power on its head. For decades, sixth-generation fighter technology meant one thing: preparing for high-intensity conflict with near-peer adversaries thousands of miles away. The F-47 was designed to penetrate advanced air defense networks, outmaneuver enemy fighters, and survive in contested airspace where one mistake means getting shot down. That's the mission profile Boeing engineers had in mind when they built this thing. If Boeing's stealth setup proves effective near Mexico, other defense companies will likely start building similar systems. Countries facing problems like insurgencies or piracy might push for their own versions of the F-47, focused more on local use than overseas missions. This could lead to an increase in the use of military aircraft for internal security. Smaller models with AI features might be developed for regional tasks. Airspace could change from open zones to areas under constant watch. Every successful mission would add to the belief that technology alone can solve instability, without changing laws or leadership. That mindset could grow the defense industry fast and lead to outcomes the original designers didn't plan for. Some analysts in defense circles and inside Boeing have raised concerns. They point out that while air power might lower violence for a short time, it doesn't fix deeper problems like poverty, corruption, or political instability. The F-47 could deliver results in specific missions, but without bigger changes, the same conflicts are likely to continue. Still, the technology has strong support. Military officials see it as accurate and low risk. Politicians see it as a way to act without drawing attention. Past examples show that having advanced tools doesn't always mean there's a solid plan. From early nuclear tests to drone strikes, the cartels have evolved beyond criminal gangs into armed networks with military-grade capabilities, and Washington is responding with technology that matches that reality. How this plays out will shape not just border security, but the future of military aviation itself. The F-47 might prove that overwhelming technological advantage works where traditional methods failed, or it might show that some problems can't be solved with stealth fighters and AI, no matter how advanced they are. Either way, people are watching military history being written in real time. For 70 years, the United States Air Force owned the sky above every battlefield it entered. The McDonnell Douglas F-15 Eagle racked up an unmatched combat record. The Lockheed Martin F-22 Raptor entered service so advanced that no rival could challenge it. However, their era is ending. The aircraft America is now building to replace them may be the most consequential fighter jet since the dawn of the jet age. But why would the Air Force pour hundreds of billions of dollars into a single aircraft at a moment when drone warfare is reshaping every battlefield on Earth? And how does a fighter jet built around an engine that has never existed before stand any real chance of outpacing a Chinese program that is already flying? Join us as we explore the shocking capabilities of America's F-47, the sixth-generation fighter that can change its shape in flight. On March 21, 2025, President Donald Trump made an announcement that immediately reordered every conversation happening inside the global defense community. Boeing had been awarded the contract to build America's next air superiority fighter. The program had a name, Next Generation Air Dominance, and had a designation, the F-47. And according to the president, an experimental version had already been flying in secret for nearly 5 years. But the announcement, as significant as it was, did not arrive in a vacuum. It arrived in the middle of a competition that had nearly collapsed entirely, inside a threat environment that had shifted faster than American planners had expected, and against the backdrop of a rival program in China that had already put 2 sixth-generation prototypes in the air simultaneously, on a single day, at a moment chosen for maximum political impact. The uncomfortable truth about American air power in the mid-2020s is that it rests on a foundation significantly more fragile than the public image of dominance suggests. The F-22 Raptor remains the most capable air superiority fighter in any inventory on Earth. But the production line for the F-22 was closed in 2011 after only 187 aircraft were built. A number so small that senior Air Force officers have described it for years as a strategic liability. Every F-22 lost in combat is gone permanently, with no production line to restart or any replacement. The F-35 is still being built, and it carries capabilities the F-22 does not, particularly in networking and the intelligence and surveillance role. But replacing a single F-35 requires between 40,000 and 60,000 man-hours of skilled labor. These are exactly what the F-47 was specifically designed to address. The F-47 is America's first sixth-generation fighter, the designated successor to the F-22 Raptor, and the centerpiece of the most expensive military aviation program ever funded. It will fly faster than Mach 2, reach targets more than 1,000 nautical miles from its base without aerial refueling, and carry an engine that can physically reconfigure itself in mid-flight, something no military jet engine in the history of aviation has ever been able to do. That last capability is worth pausing on, because it is not a marketing claim or a performance estimate subject to the usual caveats that surround early-stage programs. It is the central engineering achievement around which the entire aircraft is designed, and it changes the fundamental logic of what an air superiority fighter can be asked to do. At more than 1,000 nautical miles of unrefueled combat radius, the F-47 represents a qualitative change in what American air power can reach. The F-22's unrefueled combat radius is approximately 410 nautical miles. The difference between those two numbers is not an incremental improvement in a performance spreadsheet. In the specific geography of the Western Pacific, where American bases are few, distances are enormous, and Chinese anti-access systems have been built and positioned over 15 years specifically to hold American air power beyond effective range, the difference between 400 miles and 1,000 miles is the difference between a mission that is possible and one that simply is not. China has spent the better part of 2 decades constructing one of the most capable integrated air defense networks ever assembled. Surface-to-air missile batteries, over-the-horizon radar systems, maritime patrol aircraft, and area denial capabilities are arrayed across the Western Pacific with a single organizing purpose: to make American military intervention over Taiwan or the South China Sea prohibitively expensive in terms of aircraft lost, pilots killed, and strike packages degraded before they reach their objectives. The F-47 is designed to fly through that network. Its stealth reduces the radar cross-section those systems depend on to generate targeting solutions. Its range gets it to objectives that previous American aircraft could only reach with aerial tanker support. And those tankers, large and slow and detectable, are themselves among the most vulnerable elements of any strike package. And its propulsion system means it arrives at those objectives with full combat performance reserves intact, rather than having traded fighting capability for the fuel needed to cross the distances involved. General David Alvin, the Air Force Chief of Staff, released a public infographic with specific performance numbers in September 2025. An unusual step for a classified program, but a deliberate one. Combat radius of more than 1,000 nautical miles, top speed above Mach 2, a planned operational fleet of at least 185 aircraft with initial operational capability targeted before 2030. The propulsion system at the center of the F-47 program is called the XA-103. It is being developed by Pratt & Whitney under the Air Force's Next Generation Adaptive Propulsion Program, and it represents something that aerospace engineers have been working toward for more than a decade without ever quite reaching it. A 3-stream adaptive cycle turbofan that can change its own internal geometry while the aircraft is flying at combat speeds. To understand why that matters, it's important to understand a constraint that has governed military jet propulsion since the 1940s. Every fighter engine ever built is a fixed compromise. It is optimized for one performance point, maximum thrust or fuel efficiency or low thermal signature, and it accepts meaningful penalties in every other area. There is no escape from this. It is built into the physics. A stealth aircraft needs a cool, quiet engine that minimizes the heat signature visible to infrared sensors at long range. Because an aircraft invisible to radar, but detectable by infrared, is not operationally stealthy in any meaningful sense. A combat fighter needs raw thrust on demand, the kind of explosive power that allows it to accelerate through the sound barrier, sustain high-energy maneuvers, and maintain a performance edge over an adversary aircraft whose pilot is simultaneously fighting for his life. These two requirements pull in opposite directions with equal force, and no fixed-cycle engine in history has been able to fully satisfy both at once. The practical consequences of that trade-off are significant. An aircraft optimized for stealth and fuel efficiency may arrive at a combat engagement already depleted of the performance reserves it needs to fight effectively. An aircraft optimized for thrust burns through its fuel at a rate that compresses its operating radius, forcing commanders to either accept a shorter reach or build tanker support into every strike package, adding complexity, adding vulnerability, and adding a dependency that a capable adversary will specifically plan to exploit. The XA-103's answer to this problem is a third bypass stream. Conventional 2-stream turbofan engines, the engines in every American fighter currently flying, move air through 2 channels. The core, where combustion happens and thrust is generated, and an outer bypass channel that contributes additional thrust while improving efficiency. The XA-103 adds a third outer bypass stream, And more importantly, it can adjust the ratio of airflow between all three streams in real time while the aircraft is airborne. On the long transit to a distant target, the third bypass stream opens fully and fuel efficiency climbs by as much as 25% compared with conventional engines, extending the F-47's effective reach in precisely the mission profiles where range is the decisive limiting factor. When the aircraft reaches the engagement zone and the pilot needs maximum combat performance, airflow redirects toward the engine core, generating the kind of thrust that high-energy maneuvering demands. And throughout every phase of the mission, the engine's thermal management architecture actively works to control the heat signature that infrared sensors search for. Alex Johnson, who leads Pratt & Whitney's NGAP program, put the strategic logic directly. The United States, he said, is not interested in parity in any fight anywhere in the world. The goal is air superiority and air dominance maintained by staying several years ahead of any potential adversary at any given moment. The adaptive engine is the mechanism through which the F-47 intends to maintain that margin, not by winning any single performance metric in isolation, but by refusing to accept the fixed trade-offs that have constrained every adversary aircraft and every previous American aircraft alike. Pratt & Whitney is developing the XA-103 through an engineering approach unlike anything the company has attempted before. The engine is the first in its history to be designed entirely in a digital environment from the very beginning of the program. More than 1,500 engineers and over 100 suppliers work from a shared three-dimensional model that updates in real time across every facility involved in the program. A change made by a materials engineer in one location propagates immediately to manufacturing teams and test crews working elsewhere. During a demonstration for Air Force officials, engineers intentionally disabled one of hundreds of digital sensors embedded in the engine model and used integrated diagnostic software to identify the fault in minutes, a process that would have taken hours under traditional engineering methods. Prototype hardware is currently being assembled, with ground testing targeted for the late 2020s. General Electric is developing a competing design, the XA-102, on a similar schedule. The Air Force will select one of the two for the F-47 production fleet around 2030, and whichever engine wins that competition will power America's primary air superiority fighter for the following several decades. If neither engine is ready in time for the aircraft's first flight, currently targeted for 2028, the F-47 may fly initially with an interim propulsion system, but the Air Force has made clear that the full adaptive engine is not optional. It is the capability that makes the aircraft's performance requirements achievable at all. However, the pressure bearing down on every element of this program is not baseless, as it is closely tied to what happened over Chengdu on December 26, 2024. On that day, Mao Zedong's birthday, a date chosen for maximum symbolic impact, China flew two sixth-generation fighter prototypes simultaneously. Not the same aircraft. Two distinct designs from two different manufacturers operating from two different locations, both in the air on the same day. The first, which Western analysts quickly designated the J-36, is a large tailless tri-J with a flying wing configuration, a blended fuselage, and physical dimensions that dwarf China's existing fifth-generation J-20. The second, designated the J-50 by outside analysts, is smaller and appears optimized for a different mission set, likely a complementary role rather than a competing one. Both aircraft were real, flying, and had arrived approximately 3 years ahead of when most Western intelligence assessments had projected they would appear. The reaction within the Air Force and the broader defense community was measured in its public expression and serious in its private substance. A Department of War report released in December 2025 formally confirmed what open-source imagery had been making increasingly undeniable for months. China had completed initial flight testing of two distinct sixth-generation programs simultaneously, and neither was slowing down. Through 2025, China's development tempo only accelerated. A second J-36 prototype flew in October, featuring redesigned thrust vectoring exhaust nozzles, revised intake geometry, and changes to the landing gear layout. Substantial hardware modifications introduced within roughly 10 months of the aircraft's first public appearance. That is not how cautious, methodical aerospace development programs behave. That is rapid iteration in physical hardware, the kind of aggressive development rhythm that compresses timelines far faster than linear projections suggest. By December 2025, a third J-36 prototype was airborne. The J-50 had logged multiple flights at a separate facility. A third tailless design, distinct from both previous aircraft, had been photographed in August 2025. China had 3 distinct 6th-generation programs in active flight testing simultaneously. The J-36, analysts have concluded, is not simply a stealthier version of the J-20. It represents something closer to an entirely new category of aircraft, a large long-range platform optimized for deep penetration, strike and airborne command, designed to orchestrate combat across hundreds of kilometers through networked unmanned systems, carrying outsized internal fuel loads, large weapons bays, and sensor arrays within a configuration that minimizes radar cross-section while maximizing internal volume. Footage from 2025 showed the aircraft executing a full vertical loop at medium to high subsonic speeds, a maneuver demonstrating energy management well beyond what its size would suggest, and setting it apart from essentially every modern fighter in any current inventory. This is the competitive environment the F-47 is being built to enter. Not a theoretical future threat, a real, flying, iterating adversary already accumulating flight hours and refining its hardware while America's aircraft is still being assembled. As expected, the F-47 is being designed to be a formidable rival. The F-47 is not designed to fight alone, and understanding what it can do requires understanding the broader system it anchors. The Air Force calls it the NGAD family of systems, a networked force concept in which each crewed F-47 operates alongside multiple collaborative combat aircraft. Autonomous drone wingmen built to extend sensor coverage, carry additional munitions, and absorb radar attention that would otherwise focus entirely on the manned aircraft. The Air Force envisions fielding more than 1,000 collaborative combat aircraft alongside the F-47 fleet, with roughly 2 unmanned systems supporting each crewed fighter in operational scenarios. 2 competing designs are already in development under the program's first increment: General Atomics YFQ-42A and Anduril's YFQ-44A, both informed by years of real-world testing generated by the classified X-plane program. The logic of pairing crewed and uncrewed systems reflects the same thinking that drives every other element of the F-47 design. Get more weapons forward, create more simultaneous problems for adversary air defenses, and do so in ways that do not require placing an irreplaceable pilot at risk for every engagement those problems demand. The adaptive engine is what makes the full vision cohere operationally. A drone wingman that depletes its fuel before reaching the fight is a liability rather than a force multiplier. A crewed aircraft that trades range against combat performance is always accepting a suboptimal outcome somewhere in the mission. The XA-103's ability to run in efficient cruise mode across a 1,000-mile transit and then shift to maximum performance for the engagement means the F-47 and its autonomous wingmen arrive at the fight in the condition the mission requires, not in whatever condition a fixed-cycle engine left them in after covering the distances the Western Pacific demands. Despite the gap in prototype timelines, the United States retains meaningful advantages in several areas that cannot be replicated quickly, regardless of development tempo or funding levels. The networking and autonomy advantage is similarly structural rather than merely positional. The F-47's design as the command node of a manned-unmanned team is built on top of American investment in autonomous systems, artificial intelligence-assisted targeting, and collaborative combat software accumulated across years of actual development and classified testing. That foundation has no direct equivalent in China at a comparable stage of maturity. None of that resolves the timeline challenge. China's prototypes are flying now. America's production aircraft will fly in 2028. The Pentagon's own assessments acknowledge that Chinese 6th-generation fighters could achieve initial operational capability as early as 2035, potentially ahead of the F-47's projected fielding schedule. A defense-affiliated think tank has warned that current American fighter force levels are insufficient for a sustained high-intensity conflict in the Pacific, and that the math of distances involved, the vulnerability of forward bases, and the force ratios required to maintain air operations against a peer adversary operating close to its own territory does not automatically favor the United States. This is why General Alvin has stated publicly and repeatedly that speed is not optional. It is why the Air Force allocated $3 billion to NGAD-related technologies in fiscal year 2025 alone, and why a total program cost running into the hundreds of billions has survived the political and budgetary scrutiny that has ended expensive defense programs before. It is why Boeing built an entirely new factory before the ink on the contract was dry. It is why Pratt & Whitney invested $30 million in digital engineering infrastructure before a single production engine contract was signed. Air dominance has never been free. It has always been purchased through sustained investment, accepted risk, and the willingness to build systems that reach further than anything that came before. For 70 years, that willingness produced an air superiority advantage so complete that American commanders could treat control of the sky as a starting assumption rather than something that had to be fought for and won at enormous cost. That assumption is no longer available. China's sixth-generation programs are in the air. The hardware is already iterating. The gap that once seemed unbridgeable is now measured in years rather than decades, and in some dimensions it has already closed entirely. The F-47 is America's answer to that new reality, built for distances that previous fighters could not reach, powered by an engine that refuses to accept the constraints every previous generation of military aviation lived with, and designed to command a networked force of autonomous wingmen across a battle space defined by the specific geography and the specific threat of the Western Pacific. America has just changed the future of air warfare. A new sixth-generation fighter known as the F-47 is emerging from one of the most secret military programs ever created. Designed for extreme stealth, artificial intelligence-assisted combat, and the ability to strike deep inside the most heavily defended airspace on Earth, this aircraft could leave rival powers scrambling to catch up. So what exactly makes the F-47 so powerful, and why could it reshape the balance of power in the skies? Join us as we explore the capabilities of America's $300 billion F-47 and why it may change air warfare forever. What made the next-generation air dominance program unusual from the very beginning was the level of secrecy surrounding it. Previous American fighter competitions, including the one between Boeing and Lockheed Martin that produced the F-35 Lightning II, had been conducted largely in public, with both companies flying demonstrators in open competition. The next-generation air dominance program was different. For years, the Air Force did not even publicly confirm which companies were competing for it. The three most likely candidates were always Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman, the established heavyweights of American combat aircraft manufacturing. Northrop removed itself from the competition in July of 2023, citing its heavy commitments to the B-21 Raider bomber program. That left Boeing and Lockheed facing each other in the most classified fighter competition in American history. The secrecy was not merely bureaucratic caution, it was strategic. By the time the program became public knowledge, a full-scale flying demonstrator had already been in the air for years. General Alvin confirmed at the announcement that experimental test flights had begun in 2020, meaning the winning design had already accumulated significant flight test experience before the contract was even formally awarded. This was not a paper proposal that had beaten a rival proposal. It was a tested aircraft that had beaten a tested rival aircraft, all of it conducted in the shadows. When Trump announced Boeing as the winner and gave the aircraft its F-47 designation, several things became immediately clear. First, the name itself. Trump chose to designate it the F-47, a number that no serving American fighter had ever carried, and which carries its own resonance, being the same number as the 47th president who announced it. Second, some key performance parameters were made public, even if the full specification sheet remains classified. The F-47 will fly faster than Mach 2, which is twice the speed of sound. It will have a combat radius of more than 1,000 nautical miles, which is a dramatic improvement over the F-22's roughly 500 nautical mile combat radius, and more than double the range of the F-35. and it will be stealthier than any aircraft currently in service, incorporating what Alvin described as state-of-the-art stealth technologies that make it virtually unseeable to adversary radar systems. That combat radius figure deserves emphasis. 1,000 nautical miles translates to roughly 1,150 miles. In practical terms, that means an F-47 operating from a base in Guam could reach deep into Chinese airspace without refueling. It means that in a conflict in the Taiwan Strait or the South China Sea, the United States would have an air superiority asset capable of operating in the heart of the contested zone while remaining dangerous and survivable. The F-22's shorter range had always been considered one of its strategic limitations in an Indo-Pacific scenario, where vast distances separate American bases from potential conflict zones. The F-47 has been designed specifically to address that limitation. The propulsion system that makes this performance possible is the product of years of parallel development under what the Air Force calls the Next Generation Adaptive Propulsion Program. Both General Electric and Pratt & Whitney have been developing candidate engines under this program, with contracts that reach $3.5 billion each when the Air Force increased their value in early 2025. The frontrunner for the F-47's engines is the Pratt & Whitney XA103, a so-called adaptive cycle engine that represents a genuine step change in propulsion technology. Traditional jet engines make a fixed trade-off between thrust and fuel efficiency. Adaptive cycle engines do not. They can shift between different operating modes, optimizing for fuel efficiency during the long transit to a combat zone, then switching to a high-thrust mode when raw performance is needed in a fight. According to Pratt & Whitney's own technical documentation, the XA103 delivers 25% better fuel efficiency and 20% more thrust than the current generation of fighter engines. That combination of improved range and improved combat power in a single power plant is what allows the F-47 to hit both the 1,000 nautical mile combat radius requirement and the Mach 2+ speed requirement simultaneously. The physical design of the aircraft, as revealed in official Air Force renderings, is striking. The F-47 is tailless. There are no vertical stabilizers of the kind that give conventional fighters their distinctive silhouette. Instead, the aircraft uses a blended wing configuration with smooth, uninterrupted surfaces, a design approach that serves two purposes at once. It dramatically reduces the radar cross-section because vertical surfaces are among the most reflective features of any aircraft when illuminated by radar. And it improves aerodynamic efficiency because eliminating drag-producing tail surfaces allows the aircraft to operate more efficiently across its entire flight envelope. The aircraft appears to use canard foreplanes and thrust vectoring to handle the flight control functions that vertical stabilizers would normally perform, a technically demanding approach that becomes possible when combined with the enormous computing power available to a sixth-generation aircraft's flight control systems. Those computing and sensor systems are where the F-47 makes its most significant departure from everything that came before it. This is not simply a faster, stealthier version of the F-22. It is a fundamentally different concept of what a fighter aircraft is supposed to do. In fifth-generation aircraft like the F-22 and F-35, the pilot is the center of everything. The aircraft feeds information to the pilot, and the pilot makes decisions. The F-47 is designed around a different model. The pilot, or more accurately, the systems manager, sits at the center of a networked combat ecosystem that extends far beyond the aircraft itself. A single F-47 will be capable of commanding multiple autonomous drone wingmen simultaneously, the aircraft the Air Force calls collaborative combat aircraft. These collaborative combat aircraft are not remote-controlled drones in the conventional sense. They are highly autonomous systems capable of independent decision-making within defined mission parameters. They can carry weapons, they can carry sensors, they can act as decoys, drawing adversary fire while the F-47 operates at a safe distance. They can extend the radar coverage of a combat formation far beyond what a single crewed aircraft could achieve alone. And they can be sent into the most dangerous parts of a defended airspace first, absorbing risk that would otherwise fall on the human pilot. Under this concept, a small number of F-47s could effectively control a large and distributed combat force, acting as what defense analysts have called a quarterback for AI-driven drone swarms. The implications for how air warfare works are profound. The defining characteristic of aerial combat for the last 100 years has been the engagement between crewed aircraft. One pilot against another pilot, or a small formation against another small formation, with the outcome determined by the relative capabilities of the aircraft and the skill of the people flying them. The F-47, operating alongside collaborative combat aircraft, does not fight that way. It fights as a network system, with the crewed element providing judgment, mission command, and the most demanding decisions, while unmanned elements extend its reach, multiply its firepower, and absorb the most dangerous assignments. The adversary is no longer facing one aircraft. It is facing a constellation of systems working together under the direction of one pilot who is never where the adversary expects him to be. The Air Force plans to buy more than 185 F-47s, a fleet slightly larger than the existing F-22 force. The program is expected to cost the Air Force around $20 billion between 2025 and 2029, just for the development phase, with total program costs running into the hundreds of billions of dollars over its operational lifetime. Congress has already approved $400 million to accelerate production under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, passed in July of 2025, and the Air Force has requested $2.58 billion for the program in its fiscal year 2026 budget. The first flight is targeted for 2028, with initial operational capability expected before the end of the decade and full fielding in the early 2030s. The F-22, which the F-47 will eventually replace, is not simply being abandoned in the meantime. The Air Force has simultaneously requested $90 million to begin a viability upgrade package for the Raptor fleet, adding new infrared defensive systems, improved stealth coatings, enhanced radar capabilities, and stronger electronic warfare systems. Of the 185 Raptors currently in the fleet, only 143 are combat-ready, with the remainder tied up in training, testing, or maintenance. The upgrade program is designed to ensure that the Raptor remains genuinely capable in the years before the F-47 reaches full operational status, rather than fading into a holding role that it is no longer equipped to perform. The question that defense analysts and congressional overseers keep returning to is cost. The program is expected to consume hundreds of billions of dollars over its full lifetime. Each individual aircraft will cost significantly more than the F-35, possibly several times more, though the exact figure remains classified. Trump himself, when asked at the announcement whether he would share the price, declined, saying that disclosing the cost would reveal classified details about the aircraft's technology and size. What the Air Force has said is that the F-47 will cost less per unit than the F-22 when the full production run is taken into account, that it will be acquired in larger numbers, and that it will require significantly less manpower and infrastructure to deploy and sustain. Lower support costs over a decades-long service life can offset a higher purchase price, and the Air Force is betting heavily that the economies of scale from a fleet larger than the Raptor force, combined with the more maintainable design philosophy built into the aircraft from the start, will validate that argument over time. What is certain is that the world in which the F-47 will operate looks nothing like the world in which the F-22 was designed. In 2005, when the Raptor entered service, Chinese military aviation was still largely built around Soviet-era designs. Russian military aviation was in the middle of a long post-Soviet decline. No adversary had a credible stealth aircraft and integrated air defense systems that can now reach hundreds of miles from the coastline. The battles the F-22 was designed to fight were ones in which American air superiority could be assumed, and the only question was, by how much? That era is over. The F-47 is America's answer to the era that followed it, an era in which air superiority is not assumed, must be earned, and must be earned against adversaries who have spent 30 years studying exactly how American air power works and building systems designed to defeat it. NASA has been on the precipice of creating one of the most disturbing aircraft that the world has ever seen for a long time. However, it has often slipped right through their fingers every time they get close enough. But the emergence of Donald Trump in January 2025, as the new president of the United States, seems to have sped up those plans, with his decision in March to let Boeing build a sixth-generation fighter jet called the F-47. Could this create a global arms race? How will China and Russia respond? Join us as we discuss the potential unveiling of the F-47 in the United States. Many years ago, battles were fought and won mostly on the land, with soldiers learning to handle hand-to-hand combat and how to navigate rugged terrains. However, as time went on, aerial dominance emerged and has since become a staple in warfare, with top nations vying to create the best aerial offense and defense. Among these top nations are China, Russia, and the United States, each boasting strong technological intelligence and having dished out some of the greatest weapons over the years. However, aerial dominance requires more than technological know-how, as there is a need for grit and willingness to push the envelope, no matter how many times they fail. As an example, World War I mostly ushered in the age of aerial warfare, as it moved on from strategic ground battles, launching hand grenades or bigger explosives from the trenches, to witnessing dogfights between biplanes, with hopes that the best man wins. However, at the time, it was more brawn than brains. It was a dogfight with not enough strategy behind it. But the early 20th century has now prioritized aerial dominance, especially with renowned war specialists, including generals who have actually seen combat, declaring that whoever controls the sky has everyone else at their mercy, ushering in the greatest global arms race that the world had ever seen. The United States remains at the top of the food chain with its fifth-generation fighter jets, increasing their aerial superiority beyond control, staying nearly out of reach for other nations. While countries like China and Russia have contributed to aerial combat technology with fighter jets like the Sukhoi Su-57, Sukhoi Su-35, Sukhoi Su-30, Mikoyan MiG-35, Mikoyan MiG-31, Chengdu J-20, Chengdu J-10, Shenyang J-11, Shenyang J-15, and the Shenyang J-16, competing with the very best of what the United States has to offer. The United States, as of March 2025, has finally decided to create an aerial phenomenon that pulls them clear of anything that the nations might have to offer. Although the idea had been in existence for many decades, it has often been regarded as a bit of an imaginary thought that defies the real capabilities of science. However, the United States, with its reputation for having weapon-building companies that have helped them defy the odds in a lot of wars, has decided to take on the project. The F-47 is a project that is poised to replace the Lockheed Martin and Boeing F-22 Raptors, one of the United States' most important fighter jets. The F-22 Raptor is a twin-engine, jet-powered, all-weather, supersonic stealth fighter aircraft. As a product of the United States Air Force's Advanced Tactical Fighter, or ATF program, it was designed as a fifth-generation air dominance fighter jet. However, the vision for the F-47 is to be a game-changing maverick that could turn the tide of a war on its own without the support of another aircraft, like some that need a loyal wingman to scout ahead before they are deployed in full effect. Since the plans of the F-47 came to life, the United States has sounded out the top weapon-producing companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, and Raytheon Technology, or RTX, looking for the perfect company to flesh out the latest requirement of the United States Air Force. After a long deliberation, the President of the United States decided on Boeing, awarding them the contract to build the powerful F-47, which he described as a fighter jet that will have an unprecedented power. Although most of the details of the F-47 remain confidential, the President of the United States gave away a bit of information on what to expect. The Next Generation Air Dominance, or NGAD, program initiative is planning to build the F-47 in such a way that it is virtually unseeable and undetectable by any type of A-2AD aerial defense system that is employed by most of the top countries around the world. The initiative of the Next Generation Air Dominance created by the United States Air Force, or USAF, is centered around the vision to create a family of systems that can take on the responsibility of long-range strikes as a killer fighter jet, and also have the ability to function as a hunter fighter jet. However, it was definitely easier said than done. Since the initiation of the program, the United States Air Force has found it difficult to build a prototype that suits the plan to perfection until 2014, When the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, launched the Aerospace Innovation Initiative to build X-plane prototypes for developing and maturing next-generation fighter aircraft technologies. These prototypes, created by the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, served as full-scale flight prototypes for Boeing, which was, at the time, in need of a demonstrator for creating the penetrating counter-air vehicle, a terminology also used in describing the F-47. Following their demonstration with the X-planes, Boeing succinctly hoped to develop a penetrating counter-air fighter jet that could operate without an uncrewed collaborative combat aircraft, otherwise called a CCA. However, the advancement of technology over the years has created a new conundrum for Boeing, who had once considered having a solo fighter jet for future missions. Leaders in the United States Air Force suddenly had new demands, asking for unmanned drones that could accompany the manned fighter jets on missions. By March 2023, Air Force Secretary Frank Kendall had a clear idea of what the United States entity said the service was planning: for a notional fleet of about 200 next-generation air dominance fighters and 1,000 advanced drones to carry additional munitions or perform supporting missions. As expected, a country like the United States naturally has aerial battles in highly contested airspaces, hence the need for complete dominance. However, with the economic ties into making one F-47 fighter jet, questions have lingered on just how much the United States Air Force needs to go along with the project, especially with the F-35 Lightning II and the F-22 Raptor remaining as potent as they have always been, with very recent obvious demonstrations in the Russo-Ukrainian War. While the imagination and reason behind the program might be right, getting past Congress proved really tricky, with heavy analysis required on the appropriation of taxpayers' funds. However, in early March 2025, United States Air Force leaders stepped out to debunk the idea of canceling the project, making remarkable assertions about the importance of the project over anything else. According to Major General Joseph Kunkel, Director of Air Force Design, Integration, and Wargaming, the United States Air Force has studied what the reason behind the need for the production of the F-47 is. We tried a whole bunch of different options, and there was no more viable option than the Next Generation Air Dominance Initiative to achieve air superiority in this highly contested environment, he said. While his reasons were valid, they were still measured against the dominance of the top country's ability in the air, with nations like China, Russia, and even the demilitarized Japan in the contest to help justify the reason for the hefty investments required for building the F-47 project. For some perspective into the required numbers needed to create an F-47, each one is primed to cost at least 3 times the price of the tried and trusted Lockheed Martin F-35 Lightning II, each of which costs about $100 million. After getting a consistent look at the numbers and contrasting the level of the United States aerial defense and offense with other top countries, using data from the National Aeronautics Space Administration, or NASA, as a guide to make a decision, the data already suggested that the United States would need to make some serious improvements to their air fleets. But China's 6th-generation aircraft program was the real spark that initiated the approval of the Council. The awarded contract to Boeing to manufacture the F-47s is estimated to be around $20 billion, over double the budget that was passed along for former aircraft projects. But what makes the United States so interested in the aerially dominant Chinese 6th-generation aircraft project? The 6th-generation aircraft projects in China are created as the perfect design for futuristic use, with 2030 set as the possible date for a flight test. But why do the Chinese decide on a 6th-generation jet? Aerial dominance has always been allocated to one nation as the alpha, the United States, especially with the creation of air beasts like the F-35 Lightning II and the F-22 Raptor series. While they have been models for top countries like Beijing and the Kremlin to build their aircraft on, they have also been impediments to their decision to take over countries in the Indo-Pacific regions and parts of Southeast Asia. For some context, the Kremlin has been in pursuit of the most powerful one of the biggest territories by landmass in the world, Ukraine, with rigid claims that these parts used to belong to the old Russia when the USSR was still a tangible concept, before they were disbanded on December 26, 1991. Hence, they had been attempting a takeover since the 90s. However, owing to the stubborn will of the Ukrainians They had repelled the advances of Russia for a long time. But in that period, Russia was still licking their wounds from the Second World War. Ergo, a conquest was impossible at the time. Fast forward to 2014, the Kremlin decided on invading Ukraine, forcing them into submission and trying to take Crimea from them through annexation. While Ukraine had been annexed for 11 years, Russia had decided against taking Ukraine on. Although in an all-out war with Ukraine, Russia stood a higher chance against Ukraine owing to its vast military might in foot soldiers, weapons, ammunition, and more importantly, its aerial power. With access to aerial monsters like the Sukhoi Su-57, Sukhoi Su-35, Sukhoi Su-30, Mikoyan MiG-35, and Mikoyan MiG-31. However, they tried to create a political atmosphere where they could resolve it with negotiations, hoping that they would be granted access into Ukraine as a Kremlin-controlled sovereign state. Since Ukraine chose its sovereignty over a negotiated peace that allowed Russia control of their sovereignty, the Kremlin decided to invade Ukraine in 2022, leading to an all-out war that has, so far, claimed thousands of lives on both sides. However, Ukraine remained resilient, resisting the Russian approach with their wit and bravery from soldiers who were willing to sacrifice their lives, regardless of how asymmetric the war was. While Russia had been expected by the entirety of the world to simply crush Ukraine in one blow, the West interfered, with the United States at the forefront, leading the charge by sending war efforts to Ukraine. While the financial reload was a problem for Russia, the Kremlin's biggest gripe came with the United States' willingness to send aerial support like the F-16s. However, as the war wears on for much longer, Ukraine seems unnaturally able to hold out, as they anticipate a possible addition of some of the crown jewels of the United States Air Force fleet, including the F-22 Raptors and the F-35 Lightning II, both of which the Kremlin rarely has an answer to. Rumors from the Russo-Ukrainian war pipeline have been surrounded with a possible agreement for a sit-down with the United States, which would be in charge of bringing up peace talks, and how much the outcome could influence the United States' desire to unleash their aerial beasts. While Russia already struggles to contain the fifth-generation aerial Mavericks that the United States could potentially send as war aid to the Ukrainian side of the war, imagine a sixth-generation jet which is virtually undetectable by present-day radar technology. It was the perfect leash from the United States, keeping the Russo-Ukrainian war from escalating beyond the wild margins it already borders on. Furthermore, the same could be said for China, which has been in the southeastern waters of Asia, with a decision to expand into Taiwan, taking over their sovereignty and bending them to the will of the Chinese government, making them a simple extension of Beijing. However, once again, the United States has butted in, stopping them dead in their tracks, using the government-recognized ploy of an act called the Taiwan Relations Act, or TRA, enacted on April 10, 1979. While the United States does not recognize the terminology of Republic of China, they allow the use of the term governing authorities on Taiwan. But more importantly, the act provided the United States with the rights to engage in arms sales and even joint training of their most elite task forces with Taiwan's. Although the act does not make any provisions for directly interfering in a battle that helps them keep their sovereignty, the provision for arms sales and giving aid in finance and military-grade weapons has served as a key in keeping China at bay, basically stopping them from going up against the United States, which has a much stronger Navy and Air Force, making any war between them largely asymmetrical. Aside from the act, the United States has displayed a show of force using unconventional means to fluster Beijing into a potential surrender before their war on sovereignty even begins. For some context, the United States Naval Forces has deliberately patrolled the deep Pacific waters along the Taiwan Strait using some of their most feared aircraft carriers, like the USS Ronald Reagan, which is a Nimitz-class carrier, the USS Carl Vinson, and the USS Nimitz, all of which are capable of taking the massive responsibilities of boarding huge aircraft like the F-18 Super Hornets and the E-2D Hawkeye, and also flexing the Maverick of the United States Air Force, the F-35 Lightning II, forcing China into a rethink of their strategy to take on Taiwan. However, in a bid to improve their aerial dominance and seeking ways to win the battle for aerial dominance against the West, especially the United States, which has stopped them from the conquests of smaller countries like Taiwan. They created a sixth-generation aircraft project that drastically improves their Chengdu J-20 aircraft, which the United States seems to have an answer for. While Russia and China remain in the arms race to wrest control of the air beast created by the United States, only China seems to really have made any headway, keeping the United States on its toes. After successfully developing the fifth-generation J-20 stealth fighter, China was then working on the development of a next-generation aircraft. In January 2019, Dr. Wang Haifeng, chief designer of the Chengdu Aircraft Corporation, or CAC, announced that China had begun pre-research on sixth-generation aircraft, predicting that the program would come to fruition by 2035. However, the United States, with the support of President Donald Trump, has been forcing a much closer return, hoping to get their first prototype available 5 years earlier than the People's Republic of China. But with the United States plan still going through a rigorous bureaucratic process, China, on 5 August 2025, a third tailless stealth aircraft prototype was spotted in China, with a distinct silhouette different from the previous J-36 and J-50. The photo on social media displayed an aircraft with a pointed nose, highly swept wings with cropped tips, and a W-shaped trailing edge featuring a central extension in a triangular shape. Defense analysts speculated the airframe was an early prototype of China's sixth-generation Loyal Wingman drone, or a crewed aircraft competing with its already made J-36 and J-50. The pair was the perfect representation of the hunter-killer mission fighter jets. While the photos spread across China and beyond, Beijing has refused to comment, silently obeying the United States laws on the restriction of their forceful expansion into Taiwan. But could that change soon? While the Chinese reflected supremacy in its flagship sixth-generation fighter, there are claims from sources inside the Department of Defense that tell a story of the United States being further along the production line of the F-47s than what has been said in the media, hoping to use its element of surprise to catch other countries, especially China, off their guard. The same source claims that the United States has created a joint operation between Boeing, which is in charge of the military designs, and the aerospace eggheads in the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Aside from being a hunter-killer capable fighter jet, the F-47 is supposed to be capable of unprecedented speed, in this case, supersonic speed. The source claims that the National Aeronautics and Space Administration has been discreetly helping Boeing to test the supersonic capabilities of the engines that will be fitted into the F-47 before its release. The supersonic capable engine is suggestive of an aircraft being able to fly between the speeds of Mach 1 and Mach 3, meaning that it could travel 3 times faster than the speed of sound. The test has been rumored to be carried out because Boeing intends to fit the engine into an unprecedented structural design that could withstand the heat that comes from the friction with the air when the aircraft travels at such speed. Whether the United States upstages China in their release of the sixth-generation aerial beast or Beijing wins this global arms race, only time will tell. America's skies are about to change forever with the revolutionary Boeing F-47, our latest stealth fighter. Combining cutting-edge design with unmatched speed and agility, this aircraft redefines modern warfare. In this video, we'll dive into the secrets of its stealth technology, innovative engineering, and the game-changing impact it promises for America's defense. Buckle up and join us as we explore America's new stealth fighter, the Boeing F-47. On Friday, March 21, 2025, a groundbreaking announcement was made in the Oval Office that will forever alter the landscape of U.S. air power. President Donald Trump, alongside Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Air Force Chief of Staff General David Alvin, personally declared Boeing the winner of the Next Generation Air Dominance (NGAD) fighter initiative. This historic moment, delivered in one of America's most iconic settings, underscored the nation's commitment to advancing its tactical air capabilities and set the stage for a bold leap into the future of aerial combat. President Trump revealed that an experimental version of the F-47 has been secretly soaring through the skies for nearly 5 years. According to him, this aircraft is far beyond anything any other nation has ever built. "There's no competition," he declared. "I've seen every other jet out there, and nothing even comes close." This isn't just an upgrade, it's a whole new level. You know, level 5 is good, he said, but this is level 6. The F-47 is armed with cutting-edge stealth technology, making it virtually invisible to enemy detection. It possesses unparalleled power, setting a new benchmark for fighter jets. It's the most powerful aircraft of its kind ever created, Trump stated. And its maneuverability? Unmatched, nothing like it has ever existed before. Speed is another jaw-dropping feature. It's faster than anything people are used to. Over Mach 2, he added. That's something you don't hear very often. Beyond its speed and power, the true purpose of the F-47 is to maintain America's dominance in the skies. According to Trump, America's enemies will never see it coming. And if the aircraft is ever needed in combat, adversaries will have no chance to react. However, he expressed hope that it would never have to be used for such purposes. A new fleet of these groundbreaking jets is set to be built and deployed under his administration within the next few years. He assured that production is already well underway, with factories and facilities prepared. His vision is to ensure that the United States continues to lead the world in air superiority. At the core of this monumental development is Boeing's revolutionary 6th-generation stealth fighter, now designated the F-47. This aircraft is far more than just an upgraded jet. It represents a complete transformation in the way air combat will be conducted. With its state-of-the-art stealth features, incredible speed, and unmatched maneuverability, the F-47 is engineered to counter emerging threats and redefine the very nature of modern warfare. The U.S. Air Force plans to begin fielding this game-changing fighter within the next decade, highlighting an urgent need to maintain technological superiority in an increasingly unpredictable world. The NGAD initiative is designed to develop a next-generation fighter platform that can operate with other advanced systems. Born from the need to outpace global threats, the program integrates innovative technologies into an adaptable combat jet. Previously shrouded in uncertainty over costs and strategic relevance, the renewed commitment from this announcement has breathed new life into the initiative, paving the way for a future where American air power leads global defense. While the announcement itself is a major milestone, it is equally important to consider the long and storied competition that has brought us to this point. The race to create the ultimate fighter jet has long been a contest between two of America's most storied defense contractors, Boeing and Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin, with its celebrated F-22 Raptor and F-35 Lightning II, has been a dominant force in military aviation for decades. Their designs have set high standards in stealth, agility, and technological innovation, becoming symbols of American prowess in the skies. However, this rivalry is steeped in a rich historical context that dates back to the Cold War era. During those tense years, the need for air superiority drove both companies to push the limits of engineering and design. Every new aircraft was a critical piece in the puzzle of national security, and competition was fierce as both firms sought to secure America's strategic interests. The innovations born from this rivalry led to rapid advancements in technology, from cutting-edge stealth materials to sophisticated flight control systems, all of which have shaped the modern fighter jets we see today. Despite Lockheed Martin's illustrious history and its impressive portfolio of advanced aircraft, Boeing's recent triumph in the NGAD fighter initiative signals a potential shift in the balance of power within the defense industry. Boeing's approach with the F-47 leverages decades of aviation experience and a fresh perspective on the challenges of modern warfare. Their success is a testament to the company's relentless drive to innovate and redefine what is possible in military aviation. This victory is not merely about winning a contract. It represents a bold statement that Boeing is ready to lead the next generation of fighter jets into an era where agility, stealth, and speed are paramount. On the day the F-47 was announced, the world of military aviation was buzzing with excitement and curiosity about what this new stealth fighter would look like. Although we have only 2 image renders from the Air Force, they already tell us a lot about this mysterious aircraft. One image shows a plane with a very distinct chine starting right from the nose, a sharp, angular line that gives the jet an aggressive, futuristic look. The other image is more artistic, with much of the aircraft hidden in swirling clouds and vapor, adding an air of mystery to its design. One of the more striking details in the clear render is the suggestion of canards. These small, wing-like structures, which appear to have a high dihedral angle, could help improve the plane's maneuverability and overall stealth. The fact that the other render doesn't show these canards might be due to artistic license or simply a different angle that hides certain features. However, both images agree on one unusual characteristic. The wings seem to share the same high dihedral angle. This design choice is not common among fighters and is likely a deliberate measure to enhance stealth capabilities. Many modern jets like the F-22 and F-35, and even some Chinese fighters like the J-20 and J-36, have a radar signal trap when the wing meets the lower fuselage. In contrast, the F-47 appears to avoid this pitfall by presenting a single diamond-like cross-section when viewed from below or the sides. This streamlined design could be a game-changer, offering a significant advantage in evading radar detection. When we compare this new fighter to other iconic aircraft, a few interesting points come to light. For instance, Boeing's bird of prey demonstrator from the 1990s comes to mind. That small, experimental plane was famed for its incredibly low radar cross-section. In fact, it was so stealthy that while you could see it with the naked eye, fighter jet radar couldn't track it even from a few miles away. Its radar cross-section was rumored to be around -70 decibels, which is an impressive achievement, especially when you consider that the F-22's is about -40 decibels. Imagine that. The technology behind the bird of prey was already groundbreaking 30 years ago, and now we see echoes of that innovation in the F-47's design. The renders leave some mysteries too, as the rear half of the F-47 is not visible. This means we can only speculate about the design of its tail section, engines, and other key features that lie out of view. However, two more details stand out. First, the canopy appears fairly wide compared to the rest of the plane. A wide canopy could be an indication of enhanced pilot visibility and perhaps a more spacious cockpit, which might be designed for advanced avionics or even a dual-crew configuration in future variants. Second, the front landing gear is notably different. It has a single wheel rather than a twin-wheel setup, which is often seen in larger, heavier aircraft like the Chinese J-36 fighter. This detail suggests that the F-47 is not meant to be a massive behemoth with a 50-foot wingspan and weighing 70 tons. Instead, it likely falls in the size range of the F-22 or even a bit smaller, which would make it more agile and responsive in combat. This size and design philosophy could be a key factor in its operational role. A fighter jet that is not overly large can take advantage of increased speed, agility, and potentially lower maintenance costs, all while maintaining a strong stealth profile. In today's fast-changing combat environment, these factors are crucial. The ability to evade enemy radar and respond quickly to threats is at the heart of modern air combat. With the F-47, it seems Boeing is banking on a design that merges the best elements of past innovations with fresh, modern engineering. It's interesting to see how these features compare to those of other advanced fighters. The F-22 and F-35 have long been the benchmarks for stealth and agility in U.S. military aviation. Their designs have been refined over years of development and combat experience. On the other side of the globe, China's J-20 and the lesser-known J-36 have pushed the envelope in their own right, though they sometimes fall prey to design challenges like the radar signal trap mentioned earlier. The F-47, with its unique diamond-like cross-section and potential design refinements such as the canards and wing dihedral, seems poised to take lessons from these aircraft and perhaps even improve upon them. The subtle nod to Boeing's own heritage with the bird of prey is also a reminder of how far technology has come. The lessons learned from experimental aircraft decades ago continue to influence modern designs. It's like watching history repeat itself, only with a futuristic twist. It's easy to get excited about the possibilities of a new fighter jet, and the F-47 is no exception. At first glance, some details seem almost contradictory. For instance, the wide cockpit might make you wonder if the design features side-by-side seating. But then, if that were the case, why would the F-47 have a single-wheel front landing gear? Chances are that seating arrangement isn't in play. This simple observation tells us a lot about the design philosophy behind this new fighter. For many years, the Air Force talked about needing a large and heavy sixth-generation fighter. That was the path taken by China with its J-36, a design built on the idea that a bigger plane would offer more power and range. However, over the past year, hints have emerged suggesting that a smaller F-35 size fighter might be just as effective. The F-47 renders seem to back up this new approach. The fact that the F-47 might be more compact suggests that the Air Force is rethinking its priorities, focusing on agility and efficiency rather than sheer size. General Alvin, the Air Force Chief of Staff, released a statement loaded with praise for the F-47, calling it the most advanced, lethal, and adaptable fighter ever. He added that it is designed to outpace, outmatch, and outmaneuver any adversary. When you hear words like these, it really sets your mind racing with possibilities. Yet some of the phrasing raises interesting questions. Outmaneuver is not a word typically associated with next-generation fighters, which often sacrifice traditional turning ability in favor of stealth and speed. Instead, it might be more accurate to say the F-47 is built for agility. Its ability to rapidly change location and altitude in a split second could be the real game changer. How might this agility be achieved? One possibility is through advanced engines that offer the best of both worlds. Imagine an engine that can operate in turbofan mode for fuel efficiency during long patrols and then switch to turbojet mode when a burst of power is needed for quick maneuvers. This kind of dual-mode operation could give the F-47 an edge over current fighters by allowing it to conserve fuel without compromising on performance during critical moments. Another eyebrow-raising claim from General Alvin is about the fighter's range. He stated that the F-47 will have a significantly longer range than today's fifth-generation fighters. Currently, the F-35 boasts a combat radius of nearly 900 miles for air-to-air missions. How can a fighter that is presumably similar in size or even smaller manage to exceed that range? The answer might lie in engine efficiency. Advanced engines now in development are promising at least a 25% improvement in fuel efficiency over existing models. In addition, the F-35 is built as a multi-role aircraft, designed to carry heavy loads and endure long service lives of up to 40 years. In contrast, the F-47's airframe might be engineered for a shorter lifespan, designed to be replaced or upgraded much more frequently. This approach could allow for rapid technological refreshes, ensuring that the fighter always benefits from the latest innovations. It's fascinating to think about how these design choices reflect a shift in strategy. The Air Force once believed that a larger, more robust fighter was necessary to dominate the skies. But as technology advances, the emphasis seems to be moving toward nimbleness and efficiency. The F-47 might well be a symbol of this new approach. A fighter that is smaller but faster, with advanced engines that let it cover more ground, could change the way air combat is conducted in the future. By rethinking traditional design elements, the F-47 seems to blend lessons from past successes with bold new ideas. The possibility of a wide cockpit might initially hint at side-by-side seating, but the single-wheel front landing gear strongly suggests a different layout. This detail hints at a careful balance between pilot comfort and overall aircraft performance. A wide canopy might still allow for excellent visibility and situational awareness, even if the seating arrangement is more traditional. Such design decisions are likely driven by the need to keep the fighter's size manageable, thereby enhancing its agility. At the same time, this new fighter is positioned against a backdrop of evolving strategic thinking. The earlier vision of a bulky sixth-generation fighter, exemplified by China's J-36, is now being reconsidered in favor of a design more in line with the F-35. This shift reflects a broader trend in military aviation, where the focus is on creating platforms that can be updated more frequently, rather than relying on a single design to carry the burden of air dominance for decades. General Alvin's comments also suggest that the F-47 will be a multifaceted platform. By emphasizing the ability to outpace, outmatch, and outmaneuver, he paints a picture of a fighter that is not only fast but also versatile. The emphasis on rapid changes in location and altitude could indicate a design optimized for dynamic combat environments, where quick decisions and faster responses are critical. The F-47 is not only a leap forward in stealth technology, but also a smart, cost-effective design that promises to change the way we think about fighter jets. One interesting detail is that the F-47 may be built to carry only a few AMR/AAM-sized air-to-air missiles. This might seem like a limitation at first, but there's a clever twist. The Air Force has hinted that each F-47 will fly with more than 5 drones. These drones would serve as the primary missile carriers and shooters. In other words, the fighter jet itself wouldn't need to store a large arsenal of weapons. With the drones doing the heavy lifting in combat, the F-47 can remain lean and agile, reducing its overall weight and enhancing its stealth capabilities. Another interesting aspect is the use of novel construction methods, like metal printing, in building the F-47. This modern manufacturing process, along with other design optimizations, may allow engineers to create extra space for fuel while keeping the plane lighter. The result? A significant boost in range. Early estimates suggest that the F-47 could offer a 25% to even a 50% increase in range compared to today's F-35. Imagine the strategic advantage of a fighter jet that can fly farther, engage the enemy for longer, and still return home safely without refueling too often. Furthermore, there's talk that the F-47 may be designed with just one engine. Fewer engines mean less weight, which could further enhance its range and agility, while also simplifying maintenance. General Alvin has been very positive about the F-47's progress. He mentioned that multiple experimental demonstrators have already flown over the past 5 years. According to him, the F-47 has reached what he called unprecedented maturity. This statement speaks volumes about how much testing and refinement have already gone into the project. It's not just a concept on paper. It's a real, tangible machine that has been proven in flight tests. In fact, General Alvin revealed that a prototype will take to the skies during President Trump's term, by 2028 at the latest. This timeline is remarkable because it is faster than the development timelines for previous fighter jets like the F-35 or the F-22. However, it is important to note that while the prototype may fly soon, additional years will be needed for thorough testing and refinements. The first serial-produced airframes might not join the Air Force inventory until around 2032, with initial operational capability expected to kick in around 2035. One of the most promising aspects of the F-47 is its cost-effectiveness. The Air Force has quoted the F-47 as being cheaper than the F-22. This lower cost is not just about saving money, it means that the service can afford to buy more of these aircraft. With a larger fleet, the overall program cost is spread out over more jets, lowering the price per unit even further. This approach is similar to why the F-35 is currently cheaper than the F-15EX. In previous years, before a smaller-scale option was considered, programs like ANGAD were described as costing hundreds of millions per jet, with only around 200 units being affordable. The move toward a smaller, more cost-effective fighter like the F-47 shows a significant shift in strategy. It suggests that the future of air combat may not require massive, heavily armed air cruisers, but rather more nimble and advanced aircraft that can work in tandem with drone formations and tanker aircraft. This design philosophy indicates that the F-47 is intended to be a manageable aircraft, likely somewhere between the size of the F-35 and the F-22. Despite its relatively smaller size, the F-47 is set to be much more advanced. Its design, combining reduced weight, enhanced fuel capacity, and advanced stealth, makes it a very appealing option for the future of U.S. air power. The ability to launch alongside a swarm of drones means that this fighter jet can be a force multiplier on the battlefield. In modern warfare, where agility and technological integration are key, having a fleet of these smaller, smarter fighters could prove to be a game changer. It's also worth noting that this shift toward a more compact and efficient fighter was not a last-minute decision. The U.S. has been preparing for this transition for quite some time, possibly even before the alleged pause in the NGAD program during the summer of 2024. In fact, Boeing had already been constructing new facilities in anticipation of these future needs. This proactive approach demonstrates a clear commitment to maintaining a technological edge and ensuring that the U.S. military can adapt quickly to changing threats on the global stage. Following the announcement, companies involved in the NGAD fighter competition are speaking out with clear messages about their visions for the future of U.S. air power. Lockheed Martin, the losing bidder, quickly released a statement to TWZ. They said, Lockheed Martin continues to work to advance critical technologies to outpace emerging threats and deliver true 21st century security solutions to our nation's military forces. We are committed to advancing the state-of-the-art in air dominance to ensure America has the most revolutionary systems to counter the rapidly evolving threat environment. While disappointed with this outcome, we are confident we delivered a competitive solution. We will await further discussions with the U.S. Air Force. That final line hints at a possible protest against the contract award, showing that the battle is far from over. Engine manufacturer General Electric also joined the conversation with a post on X. Their message expressed their gratitude for the administration's leadership and reaffirmed their commitment to keeping U.S. military air superiority strong for decades to come. GE mentioned how excited they were to see the NGAD program move forward and looked forward to the opportunities it could offer to power the fighters of the future. This sentiment follows recent moves where the Air Force increased contract ceilings with both General Electric and Pratt & Whitney to $3.5 billion. Those funds will support further work on prototype next-generation jet engines under the Next Generation Adaptive Propulsion (NGAP) program, a crucial component to power the NGAD fighter. Although the future of the NGAD combat jet is still taking shape, the NGAP program is poised to have a major impact on other advanced aviation projects as well. Boeing, clearly the big winner in this contest, is making headlines for its clean sheet approach to fighter design. John Ostrower, editor-in-chief of the Air Current, pointed out that this is the first time Boeing has secured a contract for a completely new fighter jet built from scratch. In the past, Boeing's successes in the fighter market were tied to designs inherited from McDonnell Douglas, like the F-15, AV-8B, F/A-18, and EA-18. This victory with the F-47 marks a turning point for Boeing, as it shows the company is ready to innovate without relying on past templates. Their approach with the F-47 leverages decades of aviation expertise, combined with a fresh perspective on modern combat needs. The next phase for the F-47 program, as outlined by the Secretary of the Air Force Public Affairs, will kick off the Engineering and Manufacturing Development, or EMD phase. In this stage, Boeing will focus on maturing, integrating, and testing all components of the fighter. A small number of test aircraft will be built for evaluation, and the contract includes options for low-rate initial production. This means that after the rigorous testing phase, there will be room to gradually increase production, ensuring that the new fighter can be fielded effectively once it meets all performance and safety requirements. Steve Parker, Boeing's interim president and chief executive officer of its Defense, Space and Security Division, issued an official statement that summed up the company's excitement and determination. He said, "We recognize the importance of designing, building, and delivering a sixth-generation fighter capability for the United States Air Force. In preparation for this mission, we made the most significant investment in the history of our defense business, and we are ready to provide the most advanced and innovative NGAD aircraft needed to support the mission." Parker's words underline not just a commitment to winning contracts, but a deep belief in the power of innovation to redefine the future of air combat. As these statements roll in, it's clear that the race for air superiority is not just about one contract or one company. It is a complex competition that involves many players, all driven by the same goal: to keep America's skies safe and to ensure that the U.S. military remains on the cutting edge of technology. The NGAD Fighter Initiative is a perfect example of how collaboration, competition, and innovation come together in the world of defense. While Boeing takes the lead with the F-47, the ongoing efforts by Lockheed Martin, GE, Pratt & Whitney, and others are just as critical to shaping the future of air combat. In short, the next steps in the NGAD program are set to bring exciting developments to the forefront of military aviation. With the F-47 entering its EMD phase and vital engine programs moving ahead under NGAP, the stage is set for a dynamic evolution in how the United States defends its airspace. As we watch the F-47 take shape and the future of air combat unfold, one question remains: will Boeing's next-generation fighter truly redefine the skies, or will its rivals find a way to catch up? The United States has initiated the development of a weapon system that represents the most ambitious aviation project since the 1980s and carries implications far beyond military technology. The Boeing F-47 is now moving from theoretical concepts into actual hardware production at speeds that have surprised even optimistic Pentagon planners. More significantly, the revolutionary engine technology powering this extraordinary aircraft has begun demonstrating capabilities that fundamentally transform what jet aircraft can accomplish. How did the United States accelerate the F-47 from conceptual design to production status in just a few years? What makes the variable cycle engine so revolutionary? Join us as we examine the F-47 and its revolutionary propulsion system and assess how this aircraft will reshape the future of air dominance. The F-47 began with secret experimental platforms that have been testing the boundaries of aviation technology for years. The Next Generation Air Dominance Initiative traces its origins to the 2010s, when Pentagon planners recognized that American air superiority, assured since the Vietnam War era, faced unprecedented challenges from emerging peer competitors. China was rapidly modernizing its air force, developing new fifth-generation fighters, and beginning research into sixth-generation platforms. Russia, despite economic constraints and technological limitations relative to the West, was pursuing advanced fighter development, including the Su-57. The European nations also continued upgrading existing fighters, but showed little interest in funding an entirely new generation of combat aircraft. More fundamentally, planners recognized that the F-22 Raptor, introduced in 2005 and still the world's most capable air superiority fighter, was approaching the technological plateau of its generation and would require succession planning within 15 to 20 years. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, launched the Aerospace Innovation Initiative in 2014 to conduct research into the technologies that would eventually define a sixth-generation fighter. Rather than requesting concepts and designs, DARPA funded the development of full-scale experimental aircraft, or X-planes, that would prove out the most challenging technological elements under real-world flight conditions. Multiple contractors, including Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman, participated in developing competing demonstrator aircraft. These X-planes were not intended to be production prototypes, but rather technology demonstrators designed to explore concepts that had never been tested operationally. The impact of these demonstrators proved transformational. According to senior Air Force officials, the DARPA X-planes flew hundreds of hours during the NGAD evaluation, testing cutting-edge concepts and proving that the Pentagon could push the technological envelope with confidence. Former Air Force Chief of Staff General David Alvin stated in September 2025 that, "For the past 5 years, the X-planes for this aircraft have been quietly laying the foundation for the F-47, flying hundreds of hours, testing cutting-edge concepts, and proving that we can push the envelope of technology with confidence." At least one DARPA demonstrator began flying as early as 2019, meaning that the experimental aircraft had flown for nearly a decade by the time Boeing was selected to build the production F-47. In March 2025, President Donald Trump personally announced that Boeing had won the competition to develop the manned component of the NGAD program, an announcement that generated extraordinary attention and represented a turning point in the program's trajectory. The decision to award the contract to Boeing reflected multiple strategic considerations. First was the imperative to maintain industrial-based diversity in American defense manufacturing, as Lockheed Martin dominated fighter production through F-35 sales, while Northrop Grumman focused on the B-21 Raider program. Second was program maturity and risk reduction. Boeing's design was built upon years of X-plane testing that had de-risked the most critical technological elements. Third was the Trump administration's emphasis on speed. With China and Russia both pursuing sixth-generation fighter development, the Air Force and Department of Defense recognized that accelerating the F-47 timeline was essential to maintaining American technological superiority. The contract award included significant concessions that accelerated the program's progress. Rather than following the traditional evolutionary path where designs are tested extensively before entering production, Boeing moved directly into engineering and manufacturing development with the first aircraft already in production by late 2025. Boeing CEO Steve Parker stated that the F-47's production represented a testament to the maturity of our design and pedigree coming off the prototype. The company emphasized that it had leveraged years of experimental aircraft development to arrive at a production-ready design, eliminating the developmental delays that typically characterize first-of-a-kind military aircraft programs. The fiscal year 2026 defense budget reflected this prioritization. The Air Force allocated $3.5 billion to F-47 development, with an additional $900 million approved through reconciliation, giving the program a combined $4.4 billion boost. This represented a dramatic increase compared to previous budget cycles and demonstrated that Pentagon leadership considered the F-47 to be critical for maintaining American air superiority. Across the entire life cycle of the program, Boeing was expected to receive hundreds of billions of dollars in orders as the Air Force planned to acquire at least 185 F-47 aircraft, supplementing them with up to 1,000 collaborative combat aircraft, or CCA, autonomous drones that would operate as loyal wingmen. The timeline for the F-47 is extraordinarily aggressive, even by modern military aviation standards. The Air Force announced that the first flight would occur sometime in 2028, with operational capability anticipated before the end of the Trump administration's term on January 20, 2029. This compressed schedule required advances in multiple technological domains simultaneously and demanded that supplier industries deliver components and assemblies on accelerated schedules. Boeing invested heavily in its St. Louis production facility, where the F-15EX and T-7A Red Hawk trainer aircraft were already being manufactured. The company emphasized that digital twin modeling technology allowed engineers to predict manufacturing issues before physical testing began, theoretically compressing development and production timelines. However, the most critical element limiting the F-47's development trajectory is not the airframe itself, but rather the engines powering it. The Next Generation Adaptive Propulsion Program, initiated years before NGAD became publicly discussed, is developing variable cycle jet engines that represent a fundamental revolution in jet propulsion technology. Two companies, General Electric Aerospace and Pratt & Whitney, are competing to deliver the NGAP engines that will power the F-47. The competing designs, designated the GEXA-102 and the Pratt & Whitney XA-103, represent the first operational deployment of variable cycle engine technology in a fighter aircraft. Variable cycle engines function on a principle fundamentally different from all conventional jet engines. Traditional turbofan engines have fixed geometry inlets and cores that cannot change during flight. The engine operates either in an optimized condition for subsonic cruise or for supersonic dash, but cannot simultaneously optimize for both regimes. Variable cycle engines incorporate a third airstream that can be opened or closed based on mission requirements. During subsonic cruise, the third stream remains open, directing cool air through the engine, thereby maximizing fuel efficiency and range. The same engine can then close the third stream, increasing airflow and thrust to achieve speeds exceeding Mach 2 for supersonic operations. The benefits of this technology are profound. The third stream of cooled air opened for subsonic cruise theoretically doubles the range of the F-47 compared to contemporary engines used in the F-22 Raptor. The aircraft would be capable of flying intercontinental distances without refueling, projecting American power into contested regions and sustaining operations far from vulnerable logistics bases. Simultaneously, by closing the third stream for supersonic dash, the engines can deliver thrust exceeding 30,000 pounds per engine, sufficient to accelerate the F-47 to speeds exceeding Mach 2, while maintaining stealth characteristics and carrying substantial weapons payloads. The technical challenges involved in developing variable cycle engines are immense. The engine must maintain structural integrity across an enormous speed and power envelope, with components subject to extreme thermal stresses that would destroy conventional materials. The variable geometry must operate reliably through thousands of flight cycles without degrading. The control systems must respond instantaneously to pilot commands, transitioning from one configuration to another without stalling or experiencing compressor surge that could damage the engine. The compressor and turbine blades must be fabricated from advanced materials and coatings that can withstand temperatures exceeding 1,500 degrees Celsius while maintaining dimensional precision measured in fractions of millimeters. Despite the extraordinary challenges, both General Electric and Pratt & Whitney reported remarkable progress throughout 2025. Publicly available information indicates that both engines have undergone initial ground testing and component-level demonstration. GE Aerospace reported testing of the variable geometry inlet system and high-pressure compressor stages. Pratt & Whitney similarly disclosed component-level successes in variable cycle operation. The companies announced plans for full-scale engine testing to commence in 2026, with the expectation that engines would be available for aircraft integration by 2028, aligned with the planned first flight of the F-47. However, Pentagon officials acknowledged that the NJAP engines are operating on a timeline approximately 2 years behind original projections. The delay reflects supply chain constraints that have affected the entire aerospace and defense industrial base since the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. Critical materials, specialized manufacturing equipment, and highly skilled workers remain in short supply, and the combination of simultaneous high-priority programs, the F-47, B-21 Raider, and advanced unmanned systems development, has created severe competition for limited industrial capacity. The Trump administration's response to these delays exemplified the priority placed on accelerating the F-47 program. In late 2025, the Department of Defense initiated expedited reviews of supply chain bottlenecks and authorized exception procedures that allowed contractors to source components outside normal competitive procurement channels if it would accelerate development. The administration allocated emergency funding to expand manufacturing capacity at critical suppliers, including facilities producing advanced composites, titanium forgings, and specialized avionics components. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth emphasized that the accelerated timeline for the F-47 reflected the urgency of responding to Chinese military advancement and the absolute necessity of ensuring American technological superiority in air combat. The strategic implications of the F-47 and its variable cycle engines extend far beyond the aircraft itself. The first flight projected for 2028 would demonstrate capabilities that no other nation has achieved operationally. The aircraft would fly faster, farther, and with greater stealth than any existing fighter, while operating in coordination with autonomous drone wingmen that multiplied its combat power. The ability to operate across intercontinental distances without refueling would allow forward deployment into the theater in times of crisis without reliance on vulnerable logistics bases or aerial refueling, eliminating a key vulnerability of current fighter aircraft. The variable cycle engines would establish the United States as the leader in a new generation of propulsion technology that other nations would require years or decades to replicate. Russia, despite possessing theoretical knowledge of variable cycle engine principles, lacks the industrial capacity and manufacturing expertise to produce them. China, while advancing rapidly in aviation technology, has not publicly acknowledged research into variable cycle engines and would face formidable technical challenges in developing competitive systems independently. The NGAP engines would represent a decisive technological advantage that extends American air superiority decades into the future. The F-47's development also reflects a broader shift in how the Pentagon approaches cutting-edge weapons development. Rather than following the traditional path of extensive analysis, concept refinement, and then production, the Trump administration and Air Force leadership embraced an accelerationist approach that moved from prototype testing directly into production with compressed development timelines. This philosophy mirrors the operational approach championed by Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and called the Arsenal of Freedom, which emphasizes speed of innovation and rapid fielding of capabilities over lengthy analysis and risk mitigation. The risks inherent in this compressed timeline are not trivial. Accelerating development timelines increases the likelihood of technical setbacks that could delay the program. Rushing production before all developmental testing is complete could result in design flaws that require extensive rework. The pressure to meet aggressive schedules could result in quality shortcuts or component failures that compromise aircraft safety. Military programs that move too rapidly without adequate testing have historically encountered severe technical problems that ultimately cost more money and time to resolve than would have been required if they had proceeded methodically. However, Pentagon planners calculated that the strategic risks of moving too slowly outweighed the risks of acceleration. Chinese development of sixth-generation fighters, currently projected to reach operational capability in the mid-2030 decade, but potentially sooner, would create a period in the early 2030s where Beijing might possess modern sixth-generation fighters, while the United States still relied on aging fifth-generation platforms. By compressing the F-47 timeline, the Air Force aimed to achieve initial operational capability before China fielded competing sixth-generation systems, maintaining American air dominance through the critical period of the 2030 decade. The relationship between the F-47 and the Navy's parallel sixth-generation fighter program, designated the F/AXX, added another dimension to the timeline acceleration. The Navy competition was slated to select a contractor in 2027, but the focus and resources directed toward the Air Force F-47 program raised questions about whether simultaneous development of two sixth-generation fighters was feasible. Pentagon officials acknowledged that developing both the F-47 and F/AXX programs competed for the same specialized engineers, advanced materials, and manufacturing capacity. Some analysts suggested that a variant of the F-47 might ultimately serve as the Navy's sixth-generation fighter, reducing the technological redundancy and streamlining development and production. The cooperative element of the NGAD program, the integration of the F-47 with autonomous drone wingmen or collaborative combat aircraft, added additional complexity to development. The CCA program received increased funding in the fiscal year 2026 budget, rising from $494 million to $807 million. These autonomous aircraft, designed to operate under the control of F-47 pilots as loyal wingmen that could carry sensors, weapons, or electronic warfare equipment, would multiply the combat power of the manned fighter. Development of the control software, sensor fusion systems, and human-machine interfaces necessary for effective manned-unmanned teaming added significant technical challenges beyond the F-47 airframe and engines alone. Looking forward, the successful first flight of the F-47 in 2028 would represent a watershed moment in aviation history. The aircraft would demonstrate that the United States had successfully transitioned from fifth-generation to sixth-generation fighter development and could field operationally deployed combat aircraft incorporating revolutionary propulsion technology. The variable cycle engines, once proven in flight, would establish a new technological baseline that would guide propulsion development for decades. American fighter pilots would soon operate an aircraft that could engage adversaries at ranges, speeds, and with stealth characteristics that made traditional air combat doctrine obsolete. The implications for Chinese and Russian air forces were profound. China's most advanced operational fighters, the J-20 Mighty Dragon and the emerging J-35, would be rendered technologically inferior to the F-47. Russia's Su-57 would face similar disadvantages. The development of sixth-generation fighter technology in the United States would re-establish the technological superiority that had been the foundation of American air dominance since the Vietnam War era, ensuring that American pilots could defeat any adversary in sustained air combat, regardless of numerical disadvantage. However, the timeline remains contingent on the successful resolution of multiple technical challenges. The variable cycle engines must complete testing on schedule and demonstrate reliability in flight operations. The airframe must successfully integrate with the engines, flight control systems, and avionics without encountering insurmountable integration challenges. The autonomous drones and control systems must function reliably under diverse operational conditions. Any significant technical setback in any of these areas could delay the program and potentially threaten the accelerated timeline that the Trump administration had prioritized. The competition between General Electric Aerospace and Pratt & Whitney for the NGAP engine contract adds an additional dimension of urgency. The contractor that successfully delivers the first operational variable cycle engine will establish itself as the leading supplier for a technology that will power military aircraft for decades. Victory in this competition will bring substantial long-term revenue and position the winner as the premier engine manufacturer for next-generation combat aircraft globally. The company's commitment to meeting schedules reflects recognition that delays could be strategically catastrophic and commercially devastating. The F-47's advanced capabilities would strengthen American alliance relationships and reassure regional partners of the credibility of American security commitments. Japanese, South Korean, and Australian military planners would gain confidence that American military superiority in the Pacific would be maintained into the next decade, reducing pressures on these allies to develop independent strategic nuclear capabilities or pursue strategic accommodations with China. The aircraft's capabilities would also provide psychological deterrence value. The mere existence of an aircraft with the F-47's capabilities, capable of operating across intercontinental distances, achieving supersonic speeds, and maintaining stealth characteristics while carrying substantial weapons payloads, would demonstrate American technological superiority in a way that influences adversary calculations and deterrence judgments. The F-47's development also reflects a broader shift in how the Pentagon approaches cutting-edge weapons development. Rather than following the traditional path of extensive analysis, concept refinement, and then production, the Trump administration and Air Force leadership embraced an accelerationist approach that moved from prototype testing directly into production with compressed development timelines. This philosophy mirrors the operational approach championed by Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and called the Arsenal of Freedom, which emphasizes speed of innovation and rapid fielding of capabilities over lengthy analysis and risk mitigation. This represents a fundamental departure from the approach that dominated Pentagon acquisition policy for decades. Traditional military development followed a series of phases: conceptual development, technology demonstration, competitive evaluation, engineering and manufacturing development, limited production for testing, and then full-rate production. Each phase included extensive testing, evaluation, and risk mitigation. Problems discovered in one phase would be corrected before proceeding to the next phase. The accelerationist approach, by contrast, accepts higher technical risk in exchange for faster fielding of capabilities. Rather than exhaustively testing designs before committing to production, the F-47 program moves directly to production with testing and development occurring in parallel. Rather than waiting for the most optimal design solution, the program accepts good enough solutions that can be delivered on accelerated timelines. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link appearing on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.